Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast. Coming to you from the glacial dumping grounds known as the Michigan Basin. I'm Michelle.
And I am Wayne.
And we are a Michigan-based husband and wife educator and podcasting duo that after having a UFO sighting in March of 2018, have started to examine UFOs and other paranormal topics within Michigan and beyond.
Topics include UFOs, the paranormal, conspiracy theories, ghosts, alternative history and archaeology, cryptids, and all things strange and paranormal. So sit back, grab a drink, and come along with us on this journey down the paranormal rabbit hole. All right. How's everything going out there, everybody? It is January 28th, 2023. Sorry for the feedback, but things are a little crazy trying to handle everything all at the same time. So hopefully everybody's doing well. This is an emergency broadcast. So we had some guests back out on us, and so we had to pull some favors, and now we owe somebody a lot of money. So
Let me wait a while.
yeah, so this is going to be episode 46 and season 3 of the podcast. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. And this is a special podcast because we're actually live streaming at the same time, and we're going to release it as our audio podcast as well. So we're just experimenting with some things and checking everything out. So one of the quick things I wanted to do is let everybody know that if you have a sighting of a UFO or a story you want to tell us, a paranormal story, you can definitely email us. And you can email us at mi.ufopodcast@gmail.com. So what else do we got, Michelle?
Well, we've got our special guest, Jim Goodall, who's going to be joining us in a little bit. And of course, our friends, Guy and Burton, who are standing by.
Yep, we'll bring them on. We've got a little piece of news that I want to bring up and discuss with everybody. And this was the possible UFO caught on camera flying over Iraqi city of Mosul in 2016. So we're going to take a quick look at that and kind of digest that a little bit. Also, don't forget, please share, like, and subscribe. That helps grow the channel and get more people interested and following along with everything that's going on. And lastly, we would like to say, if you would like to support the channel, you can find all of our information in supporting the channel down in the show description. There is a link tree there that will take you to our store. If you want to do the whole buy us a coffee thing, all of that. So up to you, but we have to do the shameless plug. So obviously we have an online store that helps support the podcast. And, this show is actually supported by people who watch and listen. So our online store, just for those of you that don't know, it is miufopodcaststore.online. So go ahead and check that out. So, Michelle, I think we're ready to start bringing in some of our peeps.
Yeah,
what do you think?
We need to bring the guys on.
Okay, let's bring the guys on. So first, without further ado, let's bring on the sexiest man in paranormal podcasting. The only man who brings the women back into the paranormal. It's Burton.
And the only man who can get away with wearing a beanie.
Noise. I just take it from Jay and Silent Bob, honestly.
Hey, Burton, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us on this special event.
Thank you so much for having me, as always. I'm very, very excited to talk to you guys tonight. Again, very unexpected. Like you said earlier, this is you, I think, texted Guy and I last night to see if we could pull something together either last night or tonight. So this is very impromptu, and I'm very excited. So Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I didn't know if I was just going to be doing this alone. Michelle has things planned most of the time on the weekend, and but it's just the way the ball bounces, I guess. So we'll just roll with it and keep going. So,
and sometimes those turn out to be the best. So I'm excited to be a part of this.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. And I know you were excited to come on, especially with our guest that I'll introduce here in just a few moments. But we got to bring on our other co-host, the grumpiest man alive, and Disney modeled Scrooge McDuck after this man. It's Guy Merritt.
Yeah, this reminds me of my birth. This was totally unplanned. But it would be an understatement because you had messaged me and I thought you said you had James Goodall. And I thought, oh my God, that's going to be so interesting. And I thought this was going to be you interviewing him. And you sent me a link to StreamYard, which is the streaming. I didn't think I was supposed to be on here. So I'm taking a shower at about 7:39 and I get out of the shower and I'm like, wait a minute, and I got this real nice new microphone, and I've had a problem with it muting my output. So I'm ill prepared as you. This is a lot like high school for me, but I'm here. So,
well, Guy, thanks for deciding to jump in and join us, man. We're very happy that you could come on and hang out with us on this special occasion.
I'm excited that you got Jim Goodall. We've got somebody with some real bona fides with a real resume here.
Yes. So speaking of resumes and
big
Jim
time.
Goodall, yeah, let's go ahead and bring on the man of the hour, Mr. Jim Goodall. Jim.
Hey, I'm Wayne and the crew, Michelle, Burton, and Guy. I'm delighted to be here. Today is a real special day. Not only 37 years ago did Challenger blow up on takeoff, but 37 years ago today, I was under anesthesia for 11 hours, going through 9.5 hours of brain surgery. That I wasn't supposed to survive it. So, January 28th, 1986 is a real important day to me.
I'll bet you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I'm tickled to be here. I'm glad I can help. I'm blessed with a good memory. I've been around this planet for, in another 60 days, I'll be around for 78 years. So,
That's awesome.
I feel good. I love what I do, which is being retired.
And driving that Corvette, right? That Corvette around.
It's my daily driver. Daily driver. I have, for those who don't know, I have a 2010 Grand Sport Corvette. My license plate number is SR71FT, which stands for Flight Test.
That's cool.
And it'll do 185. I've been to 140 plus, but I won't do 185 with me in the car. There's too many things out there wandering around the roads. If you hit it at 60, you can walk away. If you hit it at 100, you might limp away. You hit it at 185, and you go at splat. So.
Awesome.
And the other thing, I'm working on my 29th book today. I got all just the photo captions on the book. It's 50,000 words, and I've been going through that to correct it. And it's on submarines. It's not on airplanes, but submarines are black, they're stealth, and they're deadly. So it meets all the criteria. And very few people have been on one, and even fewer have been able to photograph in one. So it's an area I decided to go down. No one else has done anything really on subs, and I cover them all. So,
well, somebody who might be listening to this, hearing you talk about being retired and things like this, is probably yelling at whatever they're listening to this podcast or watching on and yelling, bullshit, he's not retired. Listen to him, 50,000 words, 29th book. What is going on here?
I got to do something to keep this working.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I love about my books, is it forces me to use my brain. I mean, I've done a lot of stupid things. I've been married 4 times, so I haven't used my brain my whole life.
At least we've got something in common, Joe.
Oh, good. Well, it's actually 3.5, but I don't count. I don't count the Antichrist. I shouldn't.
3.5.
That was number 2. So.
Oh God.
Yeah, but there's nothing that's off limits as far as what I know. If you ask a question and I have to, you're going to get it. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you. And people say,
Awesome.
what do you keep up there? You don't tell anybody. I said, I don't keep anything up here because if, God forbid, you keep reading in the news, sudden death, unexplained death. But I'm a pureblood, and if I had something up here that's really earth shattering, and I go to bed tonight and I don't wake up in the morning, it dies with me. So if something comes my way, I will share it with somebody. It may not be you particularly, but it's going to be someone in this community. And I talk to Michael Schratt almost every day. He's like my kid, and
Yeah, we've had him on the show.
yeah, he's a super guy, and
He's a very nice guy. I was Facebook friends with him for a while. Long story, but he's a very nice man.
Yeah. No, what Michael does, no one does it better at all. And he's working on book number 2. I don't know if you've seen the Dark Secrets book number 1, but he has, and I pushed him to do that, and so finally he's doing it. He left his old job. He now is working full time for Dr. Greer. And he's putting, I guess in June, he's going to be making a presentation to members of Congress in Washington, D.C. So he's
Greer
going,
or Schratt?
Schratt.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he's going to be there with Dr. Greer, but he's going to be given the presentation.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't Schratt, isn't he this enormously big, doesn't he have this amazingly large archive? He's this archive.
He has, if you've ever seen him in person, he has 3-ring binders that, the 10-inch thick ones or the 8-inch thick ones.
Right.
He has over 300 of them. And he has the viscreen, envelope, things you can slide your stuff into. And every single event that he's covered is on these pages, and he has all the supporting documents. And he's gone out using his own dollars, and he's had all the artwork done professionally. So there are people who are obsessed with UFOs, but they can't even, they're not even a pimple on a gnat's rear end compared to what Michael does. I mean, that is his focus in life.
I'm just curious. Do you know, Jim? I mean, I don't know his background. What piqued his? How did he get focused on UFOs? Don't mind me asking. Do you know?
He's a nerd. He's not real tall. He's not muscular. He's not suave or whatever. He is a down to earth, probably the most straightforward guy in this community, because when he gives a presentation and talks about whatever the events he's talking about, he doesn't inject his own opinion. He's like Sergeant Friday.
Yeah.
This is the fact. These are the facts.
That's the facts, man.
And and these are the supporting documents. I mean, police reports, FAA reports, photographs, drawings from the original observers. So he does it all, and he's been doing it on his own for all these years. And then a lot of people worked on Dr. Greer to say, hey, you need someone who really knows this stuff. I mean, Greer knows his end inside and out. Nobody knows the stuff like Michael when it comes to talking about events. He's blessed with a good memory. He gives a great presentation. And I've known Michael for about 20 years, 25 years. And I didn't meet him until about 10 years ago. I hadn't lived in Arizona that long. And I get an email and said, this is Michael. I said, yeah. He said, I'm here in Oro Valley, which is a northern suburb of Tucson. I said, well, come on over. And boy, he was here in about 2 minutes. And we just had a fun time. And he's now living in Southern California. He was in the ghetto of Santa Barbara. He was living in Goleta. And so that's where all the billionaires dump their junk when they're done with it, and, from Santa Barbara. But he's a straight arrow, and I think the absolute world of Michael Schratt. I absolutely do, and I would stand up for him for anything. And he can, if he can ask me for anything, and if I can do it, I'll do it. I just he's one of the real good guys. And the other thing about this community, the paranormal, the things that go bump in the night, the UFOs, Bigfoot, stuff like that, all that interests me. And the thing about it, this community of whackers, and that's what we are, to the general public, I feel more at home here than anywhere I've ever been.
That's good.
Yeah. So, real quick, Jim,
Me too.
talking about your books. Now you've got a new one that you're working on that's about submarines.
Yep.
How many books do you have about the silent service or submarines at this point? And we're talking like nuclear submarines and things like that, correct?
Yeah, they're nuclear submarines. Here's my back. Here's some of my books.
Perfect. Yeah.
The one I'm most proud of is my Blackbird book, my Skunk Works book. Jeff Babbion, who was retired vice president and general manager of the Skunk Works, he told me in his man cave, his two favorite books that no one's allowed to touch are my SR-71 book and my 75 Years of the Skunk Works.
Now,
And
which book did you? And this is a fascinating story. I love this story. I heard this the other night on Not Aliens with Jared, a mutual friend of ours, Jared, and or that's Jared Murphy.
yeah,
But you were telling a story about how one of your books, I think it was the SR-71 book, you wanted it to get it to Elon Musk. Yeah, how'd that go, man? Tell us about that.
Well, he announced that he was naming his next son. I think he has 6 or 7 of them now from various women. And he said his favorite airplane in the whole wide world is the A-12. And he said, I'm naming my son A-12, and with some other symbols. He's trying to emulate Prince. And I just thought this was incredible. So I got hold of a buddy of mine who's one of the senior writers at Aviation Week. I said, okay, do you know how I can get something to his personal assistant? And he says yes. And he wrote, he sent me the link and the correct address and the mail stop. And I sent it off, and I'm tracking it. It arrived on a Friday morning. And at the time I was in LA time, and I got a call, and I canceled it because I was still asleep. I'm retired, and it was a 661 exchange, which is Palmdale or Southern California. I didn't pay much attention to it until I listened to the message, and it was his personal assistant. He said, "Mr. Goodall, Elon Musk walked in as I was taking your book out of the priority mail envelope, and he just stopped and he said, 'Is that mine? Is that for me?' And she said, 'Yes,' and he took it. He said, 'This is incredible.' And he's going through it, and he says, 'You contact Mr. Goodall and you invite him for a tour of SpaceX.'" Wow. So just about that time, of course, the scamdemic started, and they're in LA County, so everybody is wearing masks. There's no gatherings at all. So I'm still waiting to go. So the week of February 20th, I'm taking two friends of mine to SpaceX in Hawthorne, Michael Schratt, and a dear friend of mine who is a contract artist for Disney, Joel Christopher Payne. And it's going to be fun. And when I told Joe, "Hey, would you like to go to SpaceX?" He said, "My gosh, that is on my list." I said, "Well, you have to get a new bucket because I think we're going." So we hopefully the week of February 20th is the week that they're going to get back to us really relatively short order and give us a specific date. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a kick in the butt. So.
Now that's awesome. And one of the things that I'm going to warn people about right now, once we start talking like plane logo, you're going to start, or lingo, you're going to start hearing a lot of numbers being thrown around like A-12, SR-71, B-2, F-117. And, for aviation nerds like Jim and I, we know what those those things mean. So if it gets too techie and airplane nerdy, look them up. Just look them up on Google and see some of these craft that we're talking about, because it's absolutely fascinating what our military and defense contractors and stuff have been able to put together over the last, I don't know, 60, 70 years. It's really been amazing, this huge jump in technology, and it seems to be exponential. Like everything is just continuing to grow faster, smaller, but a lot more intense. And so I'm interested in the name A12, and I know a little bit about that history of the SR-71. Can you kind of break that down a little bit for us?
Okay, when the A-12, or Oxcart was the program's name, it came about because they knew that they were going to need a replacement for the U-2. This is 1957, 58. They realized that the U-2 is going to become vulnerable eventually, and we need something that flies higher and flies faster, and that is also low observable. The Blackbird was the first generation stealth. And the A does not stand for attack. The A stands for article. And it was the 12th design for the requirement to go Mach 3 at 85,000 feet. There's the silver and white one, that's the M21. Then there's an A12, an SR-71, and a YF-12 in that order. Lockheed built 50 manned Blackbirds. They built 15 A12s. 2 of them were M21s. They built 3 YF-12s, and they crashed 2. And they built 32 SR-71s. So for a total of 50. Of that 50 airplanes, they crashed 20. Oh. They crashed 3 in the month of January 1967 in a 10-day period. And that in today's world, the bean counters and the idiots that occupy the swamp would have canceled the program because of that. But like Elon says, and I think even Einstein and all the great inventors said, if you don't break something, if you don't do something wrong, you're not pushing the envelope. And Lockheed did. You have to also take in consideration that on the first flight of the A-12 Blackbird, Lou Schock was the pilot. The first unofficial flight was on the 26th of April, 1962. And they started developing it in 1958. But when it flew, it had only been, 15 or 18 years since Jaeger went Mach 1 in a rocket-powered airplane. And here, Lockheed is building a manned 45-ton airplane with 2 guys in it, going through the air at 3,200 feet per second, between 80 and 90,000 feet. And it's something you don't do. The other thing that's amazing, now I'm a retired Air Force Master Sergeant. I've been digging up stuff on the Blackbird for over 50 years. I saw my first one on the ramp at Edwards Air Force Base on March 10th, 1964 at 3:15 in the afternoon, and I can visualize it like it happened yesterday or earlier today. And I never thought I'd be where I'm at today as far as my knowledge of the Blackbird. But when I got out, I had 5 years active. I got out in '68. I wrote a bunch of letters to CIA, Air Force, Lockheed, Department of Defense, Secretary of the Air Force. I was willing to pay the published price for 8x10 glossies, colored glossies. I wanted some photographs of the Blackbird, and their official policy was not to cooperate. And because they didn't cooperate, I started digging. The more I dug, the more I found out. The more I found out, the deeper I dug. And then Ben Rich, who was Kelly Johnson's right-hand man, he told me years later, he said, there's no one on the planet from a historical point of view that knows more than you, referring to me. Because guys who work in the program, you don't go ask the guy in the next cubicle or the one down the hall or whatever, hey, what are you doing? you're working on a real black program, you keep that to yourself. You don't ask questions. You start asking questions, you raise suspicion, and they won't prosecute you. They won't send you to jail if you ask them any questions. They'll just pull your clearance. And if you don't have your Q clearance, you're screwed. You don't have a job in this industry. So I was able to do that because I didn't really have any affiliation directly with the program or Lockheed. So I just started gathering stuff, and I have official Lockheed photos, black and white 8x10s that the skunk wouldn't have, and I've about 75 or 80 photos on the Blackbirds and the drone program that they didn't have. So it's something that I have a passion for, a real big passion. And Barry wants to know, was the SR was penciled on paper around the late 50s? Yeah, starting about 57, 50, time frame. And they went through a series of, 12 iterations from the original A12, the original A1. And there's some divergence on some of the A's, like the A7. There was like 2 or 3 different designs. But it all eventually led to what we see today. The USS. What is that? Oh, come on, my mind just went blank. The Lexington, the one in downtown New York City. It's the second A12. San Diego. There's one on a pylon at Balboa Park. You have one at Lackland Air Force Base. You go to Blackbird Air Park in Palmdale. They have a U-2, an A-12, and an SR-71, among other aircraft there. So it's an incredible machine. And it was those of you who are old enough to know what a slide rule is. They didn't have computers. They didn't have calculators. They had a slipstick. That's what my dad called it. And that's how they calculated everything on the airplane. And
now, Barry does bring up here, he says, flew in the 60s and nothing better yet. Well, we've basically went spacebound. And there are a lot of things that are, that turned out to be better, but where you have to deal with fuel economy, dangers, and things like that. And Jim, if you want to back me up on this, but after SR-71 was kind of mothballed along with the U-2, we started focusing more on using space and satellites as doing our observations. Yeah. But recently, and I believe this thing just came down, Space Force has this secretive X-37B. It kind of looks something similar to a space shuttle.
Yeah, it's a baby space shuttle.
Yeah.
And then the last time it was up, it was I think it was in orbit over 800 days.
Yeah, no one knows, we don't know what it does.
No one knows what it does. Yeah, for all we know, there's a little mechanical arm in there with a rattle can of black paint, and they're going around to spy satellites and and
very true.
Yeah. No, the thing about satellites, their orbits are known and their orbits are predictable. Every morning at Area 51 at 6 a.m., they post the satellite flyover schedule. And if it's too spooky, they may not fly until later on in the day. So they wait until the threat is gone. But
I like the way this article here, the U.S. Space Force's secretive X-37B spaceplane, 10 surprising facts.
Yeah.
Number 1, we don't know anything. Number 2, we still don't know anything.
And we know even less than we did yesterday. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, they keep that thing under wraps big time.
Yeah, and it's they have 2 of them, from what I understand, and they operate out of Vandenberg. I had a tour of Vandenberg here a couple of years ago, and I had a chance to go where the shuttle, the Slick 6, as they called it, and that's where they were going to fly the shuttle out of the West Coast, but it never happened. And I think SpaceX has taken over that complex. But it's really fascinating.
All right. So before I bring in the other co-host to drop some questions at you, and I'm sure we're going to start getting into a little bit of the Area 51 UFO. Michelle even has a story about some family members that went out that way and what happened that she wants to talk to you about. But I've got this thing here from Barry, and I've heard this myself, and I believe this to be a myth about the SR-71. But he says that he believes it expands 6 feet when it's fully hot. So from the friction that's why it leaks fuel because they, So
Well,
tell us what's the truth
yeah,
on that?
I've been hearing everything, 6 inches, 6 feet, whatever. I sat down with Torrey Larson. He was the senior metallurgist at the Skunk Works when they were building the Blackbirds, and he's responsible for the structures that mounted them. The one at CIA, the one at the TA-12 at Museum of Science and Industry in LA, and 933 on the pylon there in San Diego. I just lost track. When the heck was I going with that?
The expansion of the SR-71?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have about 1,000 things going through my head at the same time, and I'm trying to, think ahead. So I sat down with Torrey, and he pulls out his metals Bible, as he called it. This gives the coefficient of expansion of all known metals. And one metal that has the smallest coefficient of expansion when heated is titanium. So he took out, the airplane the SR is 107 feet long and is 58 feet wide. When it expands, it grows in all dimensions, but the longest dimension will be length, and it grows on average 1.92 inches. And over the course of 107 feet, that's, you're not moving very much. The reason why the airplane leaks so much is the fuel is sitting on the skin. There's no bladder. The neoprene bladders that are used in today's military aircraft, they're made of neoprene. But the operating environment for this thing is from minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit to overall average temperature after 21 minutes at Mach 3. The average temperature throughout the airplane is 520 degrees Fahrenheit. And the neoprene would just get cooked and crumble. So the first time I tried to fuel it up, the fuel was just pouring out. And so they needed to do an engine run. They were using J-75s originally because the J-58 wasn't ready for several months. So they went out to the boneyard. They got some F-84 external fuel tanks. They made some wooden cradles, mounted them top of the wing, and that's what fed the engine's fuel. So they emptied out the fuel tank, and they figured that we have to do something to make this so it doesn't leak as much. And the precision built on the Blackbird is incredible. It's almost like a flying Swiss watch. The machining work is absolutely unbelievable. And but they discovered that if they use it's a water-soluble gray clay, and if you live anywhere where there's been glaciers, and you're digging in your garden and you hit this gray slimy stuff that is impermeable to water and everything else, that's glacial clay. That's what they use. It's immune to 70 below zero or 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And if they need, when they go into the tank and they're going to say they're going to reseal it, they can hose it down high pressure water, and that's how they seal the airplane. Now, typically during peacetime operations, the SR-71s can hold 100,000 pounds of fuel. It's just not 13,000 U.S. gallons, and the airplane typically, and that's 100,000. Typically, training they'll put 40,000 pounds of fuel in it. Start the engines. They'll go down to last chance. They won't even start the engines until 2 KC-135Qs are on station. There's a primary and a backup. So they launch. They go supersonic just for a few seconds, and they go back down, and then they go fuel up with a tanker. and they blew in about 20% of the fuel going through the transonic regime. And then every hour and a half they have to refuel, and during that hour and a half you've gone 2,100, 2,500 miles. I mean, when on its retirement flight, and that's what you have to think about. On its retirement flight, it flew from L.A. to Washington D.C. in an hour and 4 minutes. Everybody said, "Wow, that's incredible." But the first half of the trip, they didn't know if they got a full load of fuel, because the fuel gauges had a tendency to not function all the time. And it wasn't until they hit St. Louis, the gauges came up. They realized they had adequate fuel to make it all the way to D.C. So he advanced the throttle. It went from St. Louis to Cincinnati in 8 minutes.
Oh, man.
I mean, the airplane flies at
Insane.
2 miles every 3 seconds, 43 miles a minute, and you're moving 45 tons through the air, faster than a speeding bullet.
I think Burton just exploded.
More powerful than a locomotive. And I've interviewed everyone who's crashed one that survived. There's 4 fatalities out of the 20 crashes. So
wait, 20 crashes, only 4 fatalities.
There's only 4 fatalities. The first crash was Ken Collins. He was flying an A-12, the third A-12, and he was flying into the clouds. He was out near Wendover, Utah, and he was running J-75s, and they had the Air Research Static Pitot Tube System, and there was a loop in the tubing going to the sensors, and some water got in there. It froze. So he's in clouds, and he's trying to descend, and he's pulling back the throttle, but his altitude and his airspeed are staying the same. But he doesn't know he's going like this through the clouds. And next thing you know, he was upside down in an inverted flat spin when he punched out. And he got out okay, and it crashed about 50 miles south of Wendover, not that far off the road that goes up through Wendover. So,
Where's Wendover?
But the Air Force announced that a F-1 when it crashed, they announced an F-105 had crashed with a nuclear weapon, and there was plutonium scattered all over the countryside. The day that when they made that announcement, it turns out there wasn't an F-105 in the world in the air that day. But it was something to keep the public away.
Yep. Now, Burton, you were going to ask something?
No, I was just, where's Wendover?
Wendover, it's on Interstate 80. It's right on the border of Utah and Nevada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wendover, Utah is, they have a base there. The 509th Composite Bomb Wing, flying the B-29s, preparing to bomb Japan, did a lot of testing there at Wendover. And the old hangars are still there. You can see them from the freeway. It's a godforsaken place. Oh, here's my babies here. Oh, what do you want?
Bring them on camera if you'd like.
Yeah.
I have a, come on.
I've got them too.
I have this is my rescue German Shepherd. Her name is Scarlet. She's my sweet doggy. What do you want? You want to go outside? You can't go outside.
I love German Shepherds.
But
German Shepherds are amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to just take her out of the room and close the door. I'll
no
be
problem.
back in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're fine.
Well, that'll be a good little break there for
those
everybody.
Numbers. Those numbers on that airplane are insane. Like, because for years, like, I'm thinking of it in terms of, like, for years I've been trying to figure out, because my best friend in the world in my life, my cousin Preston, lives out in Flint. And so even before then, when I lived in Lansing, he still lived down in like Dearborn. And so we've always been like an hour apart. And I've always tried to figure out, like, how do we make that hour shorter? And he just told me that airplane can get you 45 miles in 1 minute. And that's how you do it right there.
Yeah.
Like that.
And this is technology. This is technology that was being created in the 50s.
That's right.
You know?
So which begs the question, what the hell have we got now? You know.
You have more computing capability in an iPhone 1 than the United States military and the world had in the 1950s.
When they went to the moon. When they went to the moon.
Oh, it went to the moon. I mean, they might as well used an abacus as far as the technology goes. I mean, my glasses have more memory, more capability than the shuttle had.
Somebody said to me, like Apollo, it would have been equivalent to like a Commodore 64, which was a cheesy computer you could buy in 1980. You know, it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, I was there for the conception, not the birth, the conception of Silicon Valley. I grew up in the Mountain View, Los Altos area, the Bay Area. And in the summer of 1956, my dad was a senior metrology engineer at Standards and Calibration. But he was working for a company called Leeds and Northrop. They're an instrumentation company. And the president of Fairchild Camera called my dad and said, Jim, we need your help. I said, Fairchild Camera is forming a new division. It's called Fairchild Semiconductor, and we're going to grow silicon crystal for the very first time in North America. Now, little companies that started in San Jose ended up moving to Beaverton, Oregon. I think you've heard their name, Intel. But we built 11 crystal growers in our one-car garage in the summer of 1956. And my job was to solder all the connections. We'd had hand-wound resistors. And we didn't have zip ties back then, so on wire bundles, I used to have calluses on my hand. Here you had the wax string where you're going through and wrapping everything. And that's what I grew up with. I mean, it was just fun. My dad was a mad scientist. I mean, at 5 years old, I'm using a milling machine, a drill press, a lathe, and in our garage making weapons, to go after squirrels and stuff. So, but it was the thought of having something that you could put information in and boom, you get information out was just a dream in 1956. And when we got when my wife and I, my first wife, I had a whole bunch of them, but my first wife and I, we bought our first PC, IBM PC, in May of 1981. 2 5.25-inch floppies, no memory, a 13-inch monochrome screen, a 9-pin dot matrix printer, $10,000.
Yeah, they were crazy, man. I remember that.
That's ridiculous.
In 1981 dollars.
Yeah.
Which is way more now.
And I think Bill Gates even said once he didn't think anybody would need any more memory more than about 600 megabytes. Hell, I have photos that are in the gigabyte range.
This is a terabyte hard drive, right?
Yeah. I have one right here. It's almost the same size. It's 5 terabytes.
Yeah.
I mean, I went from working with my dad on that. I ended up working for a company called Nortronics back in the late 70s. Sold magnetic technology to disk drive manufacturers, floppy drives. At one time, there were 41 disk drive manufacturers in the U.S. Most of them were located either in Southern California, Silicon Valley, or the 128 loop in Boston. And then I went to Comdex 81, came back from Comdex, and I had a 3.5-inch diskette with me. I threw it on my boss's table and said, "That's the future." "Oh, no." I said, they just transitioned from 8-inch to 5.25-inch floppies. I said, "That's the future." And it took 11 years to go from 5.25-inch floppies to never having floppy drives anymore to the diskette. And then the diskette went away in about 2.5 years when they came up with the CDs, and then the DVDs. Now you can't even get a CD drive or DVD drive in your computer. You have a USB port.
Yep. I actually have an external one right here.
Yeah, and I have my older iMac that if I have to load something up, I'll throw a disc in there, and I'll email it to me, or post it to me. So it's we've come a long way computer wise.
Absolutely. Now, Jim,
Yes, sir.
before I know Michelle's chomping at the bit to tell her story about Area 51. But before I turn it over to her so she could ask you and tell you about this story, and you can, go ahead and tell her some of the stuff you know about Area 51, which everybody finds fascinating. Barry put up in chat, I'm going to put it up here again, saying and I'm sure he means the SR-71, holds just about every aeronautical record, speed, distance. Now, so I'm guessing he means the speed record for covering a certain amount of distance. Was there not a experiment done with an SR-71 that had an atomic clock that was set in the West Coast, like in California, and they flew at top speed? And when they landed in New York, I think, my memory's really fuzzy on this. When they landed in New York, that atomic clock lost 3 seconds.
I haven't heard that.
Like there was some type of time depletion. It was an exercise to see about if they could mess with the dimension of time.
Yeah. The fastest a Blackbird, an A-12 has ever flown was flight test. Jim Eastham was the pilot. He was an A-12 number 128, which happened to be the one I had in Minneapolis. And they were trying to get past Mach 3. They were having a problem with it, and they had tried all sorts of things. Again, you're not dealing with computers to analyze the problem. It's a mechanical airplane. So they're trying this, they're trying that. They use a lot of different, they use a lot of duct tape just to try to set things up. And finally, after they did a lot of modification to the dump vents, where you dump air over if you have too much. And my mind's just going. I'm going about 10 different places right now, and it's frustrating. And that's the problem I run into when I'm talking about my favorite subject.
He asked you about if somebody could.
So Jim Eastham, said he got up to about 2.9, 2.88, and it won't go any faster. And he had a duration clock up on his about the 2 o'clock position from his sun compass scope viewing port. And it was just hitting a brick wall, and they had done all sorts of things, but they had pinned the free-floating tertiary doors in the afterburner. They had pinned them in the closed position to see if that helped, and nothing has happened. They had done a lot of rescheduling on the dump valves and whatever, and he said he's going along at 2.88, 2.9. All of a sudden, it was like he got rear-ended. The airplane goes boom like this, and all of a sudden, boom, he's right at Mach 3. So he presses the stopwatch, so to speak, and the test card said at Mach 3, do it for 10 minutes, then start your descent profile and come home. So he hit Mach 3, and all of a sudden the airplane it almost like a machine gun, bam, 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 bam. The pins on that were holding the tertiary doors in the closed position were all popping, or all breaking, and all of a sudden he's 3.2, 3.3. He hit 3.33. Held it there, until he hit the 10-minute mark, and then started his descent profile. And one of the critical items in descent, like I said earlier, the airplane grows not just under 2 inches after 20 minutes at Mach 3, but the engine grows 6 inches, 6 inches in length and 2.5 inches in diameter. So which is really critical is the descent profile. You have to cool the outer casing of the engine at the same rate you're cooling the inner workings. And I think that's Jack Weeks may have lost his life in his airplane over the Philippines in an A-12 in June of '68 for that very reason. He was descending, and he may have been descending too fast. He had two different J-58s. One had adjustable inlet guide vanes, and the other one had fixed inlet guide vanes. And they didn't tell him. So he was operating both airplanes under the same conditions, and one of the engines blew up. And there's a thing called birdwatch. It sent a tweet, not a tweet, just a peep, to a tracking airplane. There was no indication of ejection seat leaving, no indication of the canopy being ejected, but he had a spike in exhaust gas temperature and inlet temperature. And the next thing you knew, it was, the airplane was gone, and they never did find it. But that was the last, second to the last flight out of Okinawa when the program came to an end. So Mach 3.3 with Jim Eastham, and he said about a year later they're going through they're doing some other stuff. They have the inlet problem fixed. There were some other issues they had, but Jim said he was at altitude. He's about 85,000 feet, and he can't get above 2.7. So he drops the nose, and he got into good air. The air was too warm where he was at. It's supposed to be, I think standard day is 68 below zero or something like that. So he dropped the nose, and he got into good air, and he redlined everything. So for about 15 seconds before he throttled back and headed back to the barn, he hit Mach 3.56, which is 2,391 miles an hour. But that's only for about 15 seconds. The airplane is designed, and this is 1950s technology, by the way. These slide rules. Etch-a-sketches. That was your iPad. It was Etch-a-sketch.
Well, Michelle's telling me she wants to talk after the break, so we got about 8 minutes coming up for the break. Guy or Burton, do you guys want to jump in and bring up anything? I know we haven't even talked about the shuttle disaster yet. That happened 37 years ago. Or it was the first shuttle disaster, which included a teacher, one of the first teachers on a rocket.
And of course, every school kid in the world was watching it because of
the school teacher. Yeah.
You know what was strange about that is that I was working in Las Vegas. I was playing music, and I usually went to bed at a decent hour. And for some reason, I couldn't fall asleep. Right, and I was laying in bed like 7:30, staying at the airport inn right near McCarran, right across the
airport.
Yeah, I swear to God, right. I was living at the airport inn across from McCarran Airport, but I was awake, and man, when that blew up, I woke my then wife up. I said, "Oh my God, it exploded!" And she was like, "What are you talking about?" She was not that freaked out. It just, I just kind of blew my. Well, I'd lived in Houston. I lived right across the street. I used to go shopping, and I'd see Bob Crippen he drove a red step-side Chevy pickup truck. I lived in Clear Lake City. I lived right across the street from, the Johnson Space Center. So
yeah.
You saw it live?
No, I didn't see it live. I saw it on TV. But, I knew a lot of people that worked at the Space Center from living in Houston. In fact, I got a tour during a shuttle mission, and there's this, you can go up above mission control in this little room. It's all glass and stuff. And I guess there was a sign that said no photography, and I didn't see it, and I was all excited. My buddy was an engineer over there, and I had this Canon AE-1. I've got the picture. I think I might have posted it in the group. I got a bootleg picture, man. So I'm up in there in this room, and it's so cool. They've got those maps, and it's got a little icon of the shuttle, and I'm taking pictures like a madman, right? And some dude runs over to me and says, "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" And I'm like, What'd I do? And he's like, "Did you see the sign?" And I'm like, "Obviously not, But they didn't take my camera. So that's my claim to fame. I have some bootleg pictures. There was a shuttle mission going on, so yeah. It was cool too. I flew back from Edwards one time, They landed at Edwards and they were flying it to the Cape, right? And they wanted to, you know how they used to piggyback it, and they wanted to fly it low over the Johnson Space Center, so the folks that worked there could see it, you know. And I had this big balcony, and I went out, and this thing was, I mean, they flew this damn thing at like, I don't know, it couldn't have been more than about 300 foot. So everybody get a look at it. It was great, but anyway.
In the of course the Challenger, right? That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That disaster happened. What you said 37 years ago today?
Today.
Yeah, January 28th, 1986. I was 15 years old. I was home from school that day.
Just a baby.
Then yes, that is the perfect thing to go in, because like you said, we're about 4 minutes into the break, but like that is the perfect thing to go in, because you were 15.
I was 15 when that happened.
I was 3 years away from being born.
I was playing in Las Vegas.
I was born in 1989.
I was in recovery at Mayo Clinic after being under anesthesia for 11 hours.
Oh no!
And I felt like 10 pounds of poop in a 5-pound bag.
That's right. You said you had brains.
And I had they opened me up in the back here.
Oh my goodness!
Would you have a tumor? Would you have?
I had a 1.5-inch diameter tumor on my auditory nerve, pushing up against the stem of my brain. I wasn't supposed to make it through surgery.
Yeah, that's wild.
But
God.
I know when I can, it's really weird when you're 40 years old to come to terms with dying.
Yeah.
When I found out, because I was given a Christmas present to my family. I was getting to get a hearing aid because I was always saying, "What? I'm hard of hearing."
Hi, Dorothy.
So December 12th, 85, I go in for a hearing test. The doctor says, your right ear, you had noise problems associated with being around airplanes. The left ear, you either have a viral infection or you're in your ear, or you have a tumor on your auditory nerve. Yeah, okay. So I went in for a CT scan. And I asked the doctor, I said, if it's a tumor, what are you going to do? I said, well, they're historically benign, but if the surgery is at 5 hours, you have about a 50-50 chance of survival. And for every hour after that, it drops. I mean, literally, he goes like this. So your chances of survival after 8 or 10 hours is pretty much less than zero.
Pretty grim.
So I'm
and
40.
We're talking 1986 here, so technology, even medically, was nowhere near what it is today.
Right. So
nowhere near.
I said, okay, where do I have it done? And he said, well, you can go to Abbott Northwestern Hospital in Minneapolis, great hospital. Fairview, Riverside, which is associated with the University of Minnesota, or Mayo Clinic. I said, where would you recommend? He said, I can't. I said, I'm going to rephrase the question. If it was your daughter, where would you send her? He said, Mayo. I said, send me to Mayo. And I had, the company I worked on with had dissolved over the weekend. Because I went in my CT scan on the 30th of December and then 13th of January. I'm in Minnesota. It's below zero, and I go over to, go out to the western suburbs, and a lot of the guys are outside. It's cold. I mean, it's Minnesota. It's winter. And I said, why aren't you inside? He said, have you been inside? I said, no. So he went in the building. We had 52 employees, about 100,000 square feet total warehouse and production. The building was empty. Everything, personal stuff was in a box in the middle of the floor. So I walked down to one of the companies we dealt with, and I said, can I use your phone? I called the wife. I said, Shell, I said, Ventic's out of business. I said, well, that's good. I got a call from our accountant. We may owe the feds about $5,000. I said, okay, I got a 9:00 doctor's appointment. I'll see you when I get home. So that's when I went in and talked to Dr. Stephen Satz, and that's when he said that, he showed me that I had a brain tumor. He puts the image up on the screen.
So it was benign then.
Yeah, but it was in the middle. And literally, if you go in right here and right here, where those 2 points converge, is the center of an 1.5-inch diameter tumor, literally in the middle of my skull.
Right.
So what they did, they said I had a real hard head. That's per the doctors. They they drilled a 2.5-inch hole back here, lifted my brain up, and then went in for 9.5 hours. And
Oh man. All right. Look, everybody.
This is
On
a
that
tough-
note,
This is
on
a
that
tough
note,
guy, man. This is a
yeah.
tough guy.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about how tough he is when we talk about some Area 51 and trouble he got in, some trouble Michelle's family members got in here in a little bit. But we're going to take our 5-minute break. And I just want to say hello to everybody who's showing up in chat. So we got Dorothy Hawkins, Arrows Andy, we got Ghost Dragon
yeah.
ZW. Sorry to hear about the house fire, man. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, sorry.
Man,
I saw that.
He talked
So-
about that. Didn't he talk about that one
Yeah,
of the previous
Atlantis.
ones?
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Atlantis is found. Obviously, we have Barry, who's always here. He's a diehard follower. So thank you guys very much for this emergency session of a live show, and with an awesome guest, as was stated earlier, Mr. Jim Goodall.
Jim's got too many good stories. You're gonna have to have him on a couple of times, man.
I know we're just
His
getting.
life story is just.
I mean, someone asked me once. He said, "How long can you talk on the Blackbird?" I said, "Minimum 45 minutes." I said, "What's the maximum?" I said, "When my voice gives out, usually after about 10 hours." So
All right. So on that note, let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Stretch them, smoke them, get something to eat, get something to drink. And
I'm gonna
come on back.
I'm gonna try to set up my new microphone that she got me for my birthday. I tried it.
Perfect.
I tried it while we were doing this, and I messed it all up. So.
All right, man.
all right.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Yep, I'll be back. I'm gonna go get something to drink. I'll be right back.
There you
Sounds
go.
good.
All right, bud.
There is 4 minutes left to this break. Three minutes left, everybody. Just 3 minutes. 2 minutes left, everybody. Get ready. 2 minutes. One more minute and we are back. One more minute. All right, everybody, we're back. All right, everybody. How's everybody doing out there for part 2 of the show as we go into our second hour? Diane Boss, thank you for showing up, and great to see you here again. I know we didn't give you a shout out earlier, but now I will. So thank you for joining us, Diane. Dorothy's here. Straw Dog is here now. He's loving the stories. Everything's looking good. Hopefully everything's sounding good. So I'm going to bring Jim on here real quick while Michelle's finishing up a few things and coming back on. All right. So we got Jim back.
Now
Jim.
Atlantis found has a question. She
really?
She hasn't written it down, but she said she had a question.
Okay.
So what is it?
Well, yeah. Throw up that question here and I'll post it up here. But Jim, it's really funny that when I had you on the show back last June, and we were just doing an audio podcast, you want to talk about crazy synchronicities and things that happen. And when I had you come on, Michelle had something to do with her daughter, one of her band things or whatever, and they were basically going across the state to do competitions. So one of the first people I asked to come on and be a co-host with me to talk to you was Jared Murphy, and he's the author of Not Aliens. And it's not aliens worse, it's us. And his book is fantastic. His research is fantastic. I absolutely love the guy. Him and I talk on the phone sometimes for hours. We get together with you and the synchronicities of you guys in Minnesota. Then the next thing I know, he's having Thanksgiving dinner over at your house.
Yeah.
Jim, what's going on, man?
And we're going to go to Belize. We've identified some ancient property owner who owns 7,000 acres, and he says I have 1,000-foot pyramid in the jungle on my property. It's not a mountain; it's a structure, but no one's ever been there. So we don't know if these places have been pillaged by the Aztecs, or even raiding or whatever. So no, yeah, I was on with Lynn Hurley and Lynn was getting ready to move to Ohio when she had just got married, to Dave, and they had Jared on, and Jared said we was from Minneapolis, and I said, well, I was just there. I mean, literally 3 days before. All my first wife, my son and my daughter, and 5 grandsons, and a lot of friends, and another ex-wife live in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis area. So it was fortuitous that we sort of came together. And I'm a firm believer things happen because they were supposed to happen. People come into your life because they were supposed to come into your life. And the same people who left your life were supposed to leave your life. We communicate on the same frequity. So it's just everything's just sort of melded together. He was just here a couple of weeks ago. I was with him on last Thursday night is our night. And it's been sort of up and down of him being able to get on time because he moved from Minneapolis to the Salt Lake area. And so he's and he doesn't have his he said Infinity hasn't set up his email or his internet at the house yet, so he's had to go to a public library. But Jared and I know each other. We know a lot of the same people. I was back there in December. I was back there in December, right? And I left just before all the airlines shut down. I came home on the 22nd of December, back to Arizona. Arizona. So no, Jared and I are friends, and we have a fun adventure coming up.
Yeah, I was gonna try to go on that trip, and he had contacted me and sworn me to secrecy, and came on our live show a couple weeks ago, and we were kind of talking about it. And the only thing is that speaking about things that are supposed to happen in the universe, getting things right and all that stuff. This one right here, right next to me, we got our spring trip coming up here where we go to Laughlin, every spring break when school lets out. So we like to go there and hang out on the river and go and do all the casinos and walk the strip and all that. The mini strip, not Vegas. Vegas is too much for me. It overloads me, and I can't deal with Vegas very well. So yeah, man, just great time. So now that we're kind of all getting back here, I see Burton hasn't quite returned yet. We do have
Diane.
It's the guy.
Hey, I've got no life. I'm always here, man.
Is that your new mic? Because it is loud.
Oh no, is it too loud, man?
No, it's
just
fine.
Yeah, well, just a little bit. Probably
you put it in your mouth and talk. It's really loud.
Yeah, when I swallow it, right?
Yeah. All right, and we got Burton back. So
I'll mess with it.
I want to give a special shout out to my adopted mother that I've adopted from the internet, and her name's Dorothy Hawkins. And I don't have the picture of my mother, but it is uncannily eerie how much Dorothy Hawkins looks like my mom. So whether she liked it or not, I have adopted her as my mother. And she donated $5 to the podcast. So that's awesome. So via PayPal.
That's $1 a piece.
Yeah. Yeah. We're really raking it in, man. We're really raking it in.
It's going to get crazy.
Yeah. But again,
if only you could see.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. Dorothy.
Okay.
And my mom's name was Dorothy.
Oh,
So-
okay.
I'm telling you.
There's
That's
all these synchronicities. You were talking about Laughlin. You ever go to the Riverside? I played there for 2 weeks. I knew Don Laughlin. He used to fly.
Oh, yeah.
He's
still there.
Flies his helicopters.
He flew the guy I worked for up and down the Colorado River like about 6 times. He's got to be like 100 years old.
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's flying anymore. It's either his son or his grandson
He loved
that
our
pretty
band.
much runs Riverside now.
He'd come in this little lounge and sit there every night and just loved our band. So we were hitting on all these weird synchronicities. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
What is this? You know?
See, Burton? Look, I told you. The sexiest man in paranormal and UFO and heavy metal podcasting keeps bringing the women back. Look at that. And Guy, too.
Yeah,
So
right.
there you go.
Yeah, I'm bringing the women back, right?
Me and Guy got it locked.
Somebody's got to do it, man.
Geriatrics.
No, put up that other one that Dorothy just said in response. Yes, that one. That is beautiful. That is the magic of podcasting right there.
Like there you go.
That's I love that. That was a beautiful comment. Thank you, Dorothy. That was amazing. And thank you, Diana.
Diane.
Diane. Yeah. Diane. All right.
We've got. I'm dying to hear Michelle's big question, the big reveal.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this.
Yes, my silent partner over here. And by the way, thank you, 20 people. Hold on, Michelle. We got to give thanks to the 20 people that are currently watching.
We have an audience. This is like if we were on stage in a small bar right now. This is our audience. We have an audience.
And just know if you don't buy a coffee mug, Wayne hits me after the show.
Look, every time you pass up on a coffee mug, Guy gets hit.
I'm a bleeder, man.
Or abducted.
Yeah.
I don't think Jim's ready for that story yet. Let's skip that, you know.
Well, Jim's been around and seen everything, so all right. Dorothy is yelling for Michelle is having a big reveal.
See, here's the thing. I am fascinated by Area 51 stories, and the first one that I ever heard was probably sometime back in the 90s. And it was the youngest of my four brothers, which I just about went down to only having one brother because of their adventures out a little too close to Area 51. Whoa. And what had happened was they were, traveling out west, driving along, and they had stopped the car because one of the three had to take a pee. And so got back in the vehicle, realized that they were being followed by a helicopter that was pacing along with the car that they were in. So they stopped at a gas station, and whether it was a ranger, military, something of that caliber, had pulled up, asked them who they were, where they were coming from, why they were there, but then told them that they had absolutely no business being in that area. Well, and basically had to get out.
Unless they have, they do that all the time. They intimidate you, but they're full of bull, because the security people within the confines of Area 51 have no jurisdiction outside the fence line, period. They can shine lights on you, they can harass you, and they can either come out, on the public land side and try to intimidate you out of there. But if you know where you're at, if you know where the boundaries are, you can just go tell them to pound sand. Have a wonderful day and kiss my butt.
We just call it the day that I almost went to only having one brother.
Oh,
so
now the thing about Area 51, and I've been to the fence line at TTR and Area 51 about 80 times over the last 40 years. And I've had a lot of fun encounters, and probably the one of them in particular, I was with John Lear. John and I, we lost him last year.
John Lear, man. He was an interesting guy, man.
He was a one of a kind. And I knew John for a little over 4 years. And
wow.
Cool. And you didn't know if he was pulling your leg when he was talking to you or if he got mad at you, but he was a unique human being. But when they announced the existence of the F-117, I called up Lear and I said, hey, I'm coming to Vegas the first week of January. Let's go see if we can see it. He said, sure. So first week of January of 89, I'm up in Vegas. I go to John's house. We head up to Tonopah. And we're going up US 95.
Been there.
Yeah, about halfway between Vegas and Tonopah is Scotty's Junction. And the only reason I used Scotty's Junction, it's an interesting place. The federal government took over a legal house of prostitution for failure to pay taxes, and they ran it out of business. But that's just, that's just a waypoint. We're about 15 miles north of Scotty's Junction on US 95, and an F-117 flies right over about 1,500 feet off the ground, and I almost crashed the car. So we get to Tonopah, we grab a quick bite, we hit US 6. We go out to 14 miles to the road that says Tonopah Test Range. You go down 18 miles. You're in public lands. You know, I'm retired military, so I can get on most bases, but not ones that are restricted, such as Tonopah Test Range and Area 51. So we just follow the fence line. And that's where I saw my first F-117. But fast forward to 1996, June of 96. The F-117s are gone from Tonopah Test Range. But we also know that they've installed a third perimeter around the base, and they put in the most high-tech fiber optics communication suite in the Air Force. So it's about 11 o'clock at night. John and I out there were Generation 1 night vision goggles, where you go out there, you use a lawn chair. You get a cheap lawn chair from Walmart. You tape up your cuffs of your pants so that scorpions don't crawl up your leg. And we're sitting there, we have our feet up in the barbed wire, and there's 3 armored personnel carriers, one coming up from the south, one from the west, they have the lights off. But we can see them, I have my NVGs on. So I stand up real loud, and yell real loud, "Hey, we're good guys, we're taxpayers." Boom, it's on us. I have 3 little red dots dancing on my chest. John has 3 little red dots dancing on his chest. And then on the public land side, a vehicle was coming down. The guy who walks around Lear's pickup truck, he has his hand on his 9mm. This guy's in desert utilities. He said, "You're in a restricted area and I'm ready to leave." And I said, "Sir, I don't know who you are, but this is public lands and I don't need your permission to be here." I said, "You're in a restricted area, I'm ordering to leave." So I pull out the aeronautical map that gives the longitude and latitude to the second of the restricted area. And I said, if you look at that fence post over where my buddy's sitting, you'll find a USGS medallion that gives the longitude and latitude to the second. It says, "I'm on public lands and I don't need your permission to be here, and I can be here for 15 consecutive days without anybody's permission." And he's really getting pissed. He said, "I want to see some ID." I said, "Well, who are you?" "So I'm Captain so-and-so with ASI, Advanced Security Inc." I said, "Sir, you're a rent-a-cop and you don't have jurisdiction on this side of the fence." And you can just see all the tendons and muscles, and he was not very pleased with me. So, "I want to see some ID." And I said, "I don't have to show you squat. Well, I've been deputized by the state of Nevada, Lincoln, Esmeralda, and Lincoln and Nye County to uphold the laws of the state of Nevada and the federal government." I said, "Well, good for you." And I said, "Well, I tell you what, you show me yours, I'll show you mine." So he hands me his ASI badge. We still have the floodlights on us, and I still have the little red dots on me. And I said, "This is not a valid form of ID. I need something issued by the state or federal government." And he's getting even more pissed. So he hands me his Nevada driver's license. I don't have these things on, so I can't see it. So I pulled out my Minnesota driver's license and handed it to him. Lear pulls out his and hands it to him. He goes over to the fence. A guy came up to the fence. He handed it to the guy on the south side of the fence. He went to the supervisor's armored personnel carrier, gave it to him, turns the light on. And I don't know if I can use any profanity. If I do, you could.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So
We do.
light turns. And I'm real hard of hearing because I don't hear anything on this side. I hear this sound. "Oh shit, it's Goodall and Lear." The lights went off, the red dots went away, and the captain just turned around and walked away. He's just, they knew who I am, and they have for a very long, long time. And it's fun. I mean, I was up on the top of Freedom Ridge. Now this was in like 93. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden we had flashlights on our face.
Isn't that where you can supposedly get the best view of area?
You don't even have to get out of your car. It was like a drive-in movie. Really? Glenn Campbell, not the singer, but Glenn Campbell.
Oh, I know who he is. Yeah.
From the Area 51 Research Center. The two of us worked our way and found a route to drive up to the top of Freedom Ridge, and you could hear him on the radios. "Oh God, oh my Jesus, it's beach is like a friggin' drive-in movie. What the hell they do? Oh God." And so literally at one time we had about 10 cars up there all facing Area 51. So you can sit back there with just, if it's cold, you turn the heater on or whatever.
You can't get up there now, can you?
No, they took that away, and they took Whitesides away.
Right.
And the first time I went up with Whitesides was shortly after I saw the F-117 for the first time, and that day was the day I met Bob Lazar also.
What do you? I got to. You know what Wayne said?
Well,
you were
well
gonna
hold
be
on,
good.
guy. Can you hold
I
on
gotta
to this
know.
question? Because hold that thought.
No,
Don't
you're good,
don't
you're
lose
good.
it. Don't lose it. But
You know
Atlantis
me, I'm
is
always.
found. All right, so we got a question coming from Atlantis. I guess he asked it earlier, but he says, "Hi, Mr. Goodall. What are the latest low observables that you have known of for sure, and the fringe that you heard of? You think could be credible?"
Hey, the F-117 was developed in the 1970s. The
That's amazing.
F-22 and F-35 were developed in the 80s. If it was developed in 83, that was 40 years ago. So, are they? What are they doing out there? They haven't been sitting on their butt. I did. I did decide I was going to ask Jeff Babion, the vice president, general manager of the Skunk Works. I did ask him directly to his face what kind of alien UFO technology is being utilized in Skunk Works programs. And he told me that he wasn't aware of any. I mean, I looked him straight in the eye, and he may have been telling me the truth. And
Who knows?
yeah. But I think some of the people at the Skunk Works now don't like me like they used to, because I asked that question. So,
Well, that question kind of leads us into. I want to put up a news story here and kind of get your guys' feedback on it. And I didn't send this to anybody to have them read ahead of time. Let's just peruse through this really quick.
sure.
And here we go. So, possible UFO caught on camera flying over Iraqi city of Mosul in 2016. Now, this I'm just leaving all the text out. This is the UFO.
Can we see that? Is there a video
It's
or is it just a photograph?
It's just a photograph.
All right.
one of the
All right, and this is
orbs.
coming from Corbell. And
Jeremy
Doorbell.
I don't know.
yeah,
All right.
I don't know.
so you can see his little
Maybe.
moniker up there. You know, I can't.
Jeremy Corbell, again, correct me if I'm wrong. He's the one that's been working with George Knapp lately. He's been on Joe Rogan, and he's the one that's been doing all this disclosure stuff and releasing all this stuff. So it's a guy that he isn't he the one that did had a big part in the Tic Tac being released.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the guy. You got the guy. You got.
He's a self-promoter. That's the only thing he's in. It's the only thing he's interested in.
Well,
That's kind of how I feel, man. Exactly.
And I've known George Knapp for as long as I've known John Lear.
and George Knapp is a good.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
George.
I like George a lot too.
But I feel
Yeah, it seems like
exactly. Corbell's self promotion, man.
Oh,
That's my
yeah.
feeling. Yeah.
And that's everybody's feeling. It's not just you. I don't know anybody that's been doing this for any length of time that says anything different.
Well, look at me.
He's
Send me money.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
well, here's the thing. Here's my feelings on it is that, and I could be wrong. And you know, Jim, Rich over at Goof On and stuff, and you know he's a good friend of ours, and you know his podcast, and a lot of the people you're seeing in chat are Goofonians. You know, they come over here. We're growing a little family here, and you know Richie's a good guy, but he can't stand fakers and really just loves to rip them apart. And sometimes he goes on the personal.
He's an Italian from New York. He's got a short fuse, man.
Yeah, and he'll rip people apart.
And I'm half Sicilian, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. But he'll rip people apart and go in doing the personal attacks. You know, I won't personally do that, but he's passionate, right? He's not angry. He's passionate. Guy said this about him the other day on his chat. And absolutely, because something like you're seeing on the screen right now, and for those of you listening, it's this picture of possibly a silver ball of some type. And I'm looking at this is supposed to be from a spy plane. And as I'm looking at the computer readout, the stuff looks fake that they put around here, where it's showing some type of electronic compass down at the bottom. It's saying that the aircraft is at 26,683 feet. And I'm reading this armed, things are armed, but this could have been anything zipping around the air or on the ground. And it seems like to me, and Jim, you know George Knapp, and Jeremy, if you want to come on here, I have nothing against you. Come on, talk, plead your cases, talk about this. But
has he got radar data? Has he got what else has he got?
You need more pictures. Don't do it anymore because they're so faked. And just like videos are so
same
fake.
with a little pixel up there moving around. Now, what the hell is it? I mean, it could be a bug.
Yeah, it could be a condensation drop. If this aircraft is 26,000 feet up in the air, we don't know the air conditions or anything. But knowing George Knapp, Jim, I get the feeling from Corbell that he just likes to ride on his coattails, and he follows him like a little puppy dog and uses material from George to kind of promote himself and his stuff. And and again, Jeremy, I have nothing against you, but that's kind of my feelings on it. And if you know a little bit about George Knapp, what do you have to say?
Yeah, George is a pretty straight shooter. I've been on the air with him 11, 12 different times over the last 40 years. I think the world of him. I mean, he's the one who got Jeremy into Bob. I haven't talked to Bob about the movie, but I don't think he's happy with it because, like I say, it was a self promotion for Jeremy. But I plan on visiting Bob, this summer. I was trying to do it last year, and it was in early April. I was in Las Vegas, and I was just going to head up north. And my car is not a car you drive in the snow. I have a Grand Sport Corvette, and it's if I want to kill myself, I'll go drive in the snow. But I'm not going to. So I postponed. I was going to go up, I postponed it, but I'm going to go up later on this year. I don't know. George is as straight shooter as they come. He's done a lot. If it wasn't for, he's the one responsible for Bob coming out, and basically it was because of George's friendship with John Lear, and that's how I met Bob. Now the day that the F-117 flew over us on just north of Scotty's Junction, Lear and I are. We're heading up to Tonopah. This thing goes over us, and like I said earlier, I almost crashed the car. So we're this line before digital cameras, and I'm shooting with a Nikon, and I've always shot Kodachrome 64, Kodachrome 25. I was never a print film person. So I had Kodacolor 100 because I needed it processed quickly if I got a shot of this thing. And we're on the fence line. And I look to the north, there's a little black fuzzy ball about 18 miles north, maybe 20 miles north, and a little light underneath it, and a smaller whitish dot next to it with a light. I said, well, that's got to be the F-117 and a chase. So I'm there with my telephoto lens. All of a sudden, this thing is starting to fill up the viewfinder. And all of a sudden, my body started surging like I was a 10-year-old boy seeing a naked woman for the first time. I mean, my whole body was vibrating, and I didn't know if I had got any good shots. So as soon as we got done, I told John, let's get back to Vegas. I want to go to a photomat and get the film process and see what I got. And so we probably won't make it by to get there in time to go to the photomat. But we'll figure something out. So we head on out. We stopped at Little Alien. We grabbed a bite. Said hi to Joe and Pat Travis. That's before Joe passed away. And then we headed down to Vegas. We got there a little after 9 o'clock to his house. And he said, I had a buddy of mine just moved here from Albuquerque. He's interviewing for a job out in the desert. I think you'll like him. He's an interesting guy. So about 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. John went to the front door, brought him into his study. And if you haven't seen John Lear's study, that was a place of, it was an amazing place. You couldn't put any more things on the wall or on the tables. I mean, it was.
I saw a video recently, and he was walking through there.
Yeah.
Pardon my language. There was shit everywhere.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. My wife is OCD. I brought her over there, and she had the willies. So, and I didn't even let her look at the rest of the house. He and Merritt got divorced after 50 years. And then, of course, he passed away. And I'm surprised he made it past 2015. He was in that bad a shape.
Now, Lear is his background, everybody knows him from the UFO scene, and his son is kind of in that scene and everything. But isn't that also the Lear jet guy?
His father is William Lear of Learjet.
Yes.
John flew for Continental Air Service, which is a subsidiary of Air America. He flew for them in Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand for 14 years. And he's type certified in 61 aircraft and helicopters.
Certified in like every airplane on the planet.
Anything with wings, man.
He has even at his death, he still holds 15 FAI world records for flying around solo around the world on his 16th birthday in his dad's Lear 23 Learjet. So he was, John Lear is a one of a kind. He's gone, and with him goes a lot of humor and a lot of information. I mean, he's been all over the world.
Yep.
And he was a unique human being. So,
well, speaking of unique human beings, giving a shout out to the 22 people that says are watching this right now.
Good.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And I know it's a lot of the Goof On family, and thanks you guys for showing up. And then we got another PayPal donation from this guy. I don't know if I trust this dude or not, but Burton Bargerstock sent us $10. I don't know who this guy is, but
that guy.
All right. I don't know. I think it's the sexiest man alive in paranormal and UFO podcasting.
Okay.
And keeps bringing the ladies back. Diane will agree with that.
Ladies.
Yeah. So to get back to my Lear Lazar story, so John goes open the door. This young man comes in and introduced himself as Bob Lazar. He said, "I've been working for Sandia on weapons development, and I'm interviewing for a job out in the desert." So I told him about my dilemma having print film with the very first shots of an F-117 that were not taken by DOD or Lockheed. And he said, well, I have a C-41 processing unit at home. I live on the other side of town off of West Charleston. Just go jump in my car and go get processed. See what do you have? So we jump in the car, and we're not more than a block from Lear's house, and he looks at me. He says, I feel sorry for that dumb son of a bitch Lear. I said, what do you mean? He said, that crazy guy believes in UFOs. I said, my God, he's from this world-famous aviation family, and he's a UFO nut. I said, he said, I'm a nuclear physicist. If I can't prove it mathematically or put my hands on it, it doesn't exist.
Wow.
Now, who said that?
Bob Lazar.
Oh, okay.
He hadn't gone to work. He hadn't gone to work out there yet.
And we're working at Sandia. He hadn't gone out there yet. And he tells Jim, the first night he meets him, poor John's out of his friggin' mind. He believes in UFOs.
Yeah. And when George Knapp was doing investigating Bob's background, Bob said, I was written up in the Sandia newspaper of, he has a jet car. It was a Lamborghini Countach. He said, and it was I have to really find the paper. But it's a picture of Bob. You can't mistake him for Bob Lazar. He's standing in front of his jet car, and it says, Sandia professor relaxes on weekend going 300 miles an hour and a quarter mile.
Yeah.
And right there, he worked there. Edward Teller is the one who suggested Bob.
Yeah.
When they asked Edward Teller or his people, they said no comment. If he was a fraud, they would have said, I've never heard of the guy. I don't know where he came from. But all they said is no comment. You cannot comment or confirm or deny anything that's classified. If someone asks you, is the SR-71 black? If it was still classified, you said no comment. And you can neither confirm nor deny. And no one within the chain of command there of hiring that George contacted, absolutely none of them said, oh, he's a fraud. I've never heard of the guy. They said no comment.
Well, and they found his number. They found his phone number in a phone book that listed.
What's his name? In the room he said he worked out of, and the phone number he said he had.
Exactly.
And the two guys in the same lab with him.
Right.
So,
and I heard you on a podcast.
Right.
I heard you on a podcast earlier where I think it was called like Into the Deep, and it was like 11 months ago or something like that. But like you said, like they had a pay stub.
I had his W-2.
W-2. Yes.
Okay, I had his W-2.
Right.
I had 5 years active duty. I was out 10 years, and I joined the Minnesota Air Guard as a traditional weekender. I was the wing historian, and then I went to state staff, and then went back to the wing. But I was activated for Desert Shield and Desert Storm. I had Bob's W-2 with me. He had marked out his Social Security number, but that was the only thing that was altered. And I was there for about 3 weeks, and I had a slow day. There was a bunch of stuff that wasn't happening. And I said, well, I'm going to see if I can find this Department of Navy that paid Bob. And I looked at the Pentagon directory.
Follow the money.
It wasn't there. So I decided, I think I went to Naval Investigative Services, their headquarters there at the Pentagon. And I may be wrong with the name, but it was Navy something and had to do with intelligence or investigation. So I walked here. I'm an E6. I'm in my Class A uniform. I go in, the door's open. I go in there. There's a young Lieutenant JG behind the desk, and I said, "Sir, can you tell me where this Navy operation is located?" And I hand him the W-2. He looks at it and says, "Sergeant, excuse me for a second." He walks into the 2 Stars office, and he's in there for about 15, 20 seconds. He comes out and he said, "The Admiral will see you now." Now, those of you who have been in the military, especially the Navy, knows that no 2-star admiral is going to talk to an enlisted puke from the Air Force or the Air Guard, unless it was a matter of national security or this guy's really pissed. And I go in there. They said, "The Admiral will see you now." So I go in there. I give him a real sharp salute. He doesn't say at ease. He said parade rest. So I'm standing there at parade rest, and he has Lazar's W-2 in his hand, and he said, "Sergeant, I don't know where you got this, but if I ever see your face cross the threshold of my door ever again, you'll be the most sorry son of a bitch's NCO in the United States military. Do you understand me, Sergeant?" I said, "Yes, sir." And with that, he took it and put it in the shredder. He said, "You're dismissed." And I gave him a sharp salute, did an about face, and walked out. Now, if Bob was a fraud, I would have not seen that 2-star, and he would not reacted the way he did.
And see, this is the information. This is why I love talking to people about this, because nobody knows about this.
I mean, like they bombed around in a car together, for leaving John Lear's house. I mean, this is a great guest, and I feel vindicated because my instincts forever, and I've lost friends over this. This bullshit.
Bob's story has never changed.
No,
never.
I've said, and there are so many people involved in this whole thing that I never intended to be in, but you know how it happened.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't. I just listen to the guy, and I've got just a measly 4-year degree in psychology. This guy just does his body language, and plus he's got, there's face. There's a trail. Okay.
Yeah. And when I met him, when we processed the film, he had a very ornate, beautiful diploma. I didn't read it. I just sort of glanced at it. I mean, could have been from MIT. It could have been from Toys R Us. I don't know. But he had a 19-inch NEMA rack behind his desk, and it was filled with processors. This is in 89, before there was we had any really things fast.
This is a guy who's not a scientist, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's proven that he did work at Caltech, and he had to have an advanced degree to do what he did, and his employment was verified. But he doesn't, as far as Social Security is concerned, he doesn't exist prior to 89.
Just real quick.
Yes.
Jim, sorry to interrupt, but I need to acknowledge some people. First of all, I want to acknowledge Anthony Stevens. He sent us a $5 donation saying, great show. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That money all helps us. And then we got another one in from Ghost Dragon of $10. Now, listen, dude, you're going through your stuff that you're going through. Don't be sending us money. It's not necessary. But we truly appreciate you, man, and everybody watching right now. So thank you very much. And let's there was a question here from Ghost Dragon, and he says, are they still looking for that thing he took or didn't take?
You mean
Jim?
the element 115?
Yeah.
He showed it to me.
Oh, you seen it?
He showed me. He says, this is the stuff that powers the UFOs. And next time I went there, he said, when he was out in the desert, someone entered his house, took all his personal paperwork to prove who he is, his diploma, anything associated with S4.
Yeah, and Dorothy, what is it? Dorothy says it here. Oh, this is it. Dorothy says, yeah, the issue of disappearing credentials and job histories, it's been happening for so long. Missing bodies or mysterious deaths.
Yeah.
They can do that stuff, man.
They
can do it.
Yeah,
Push
and it's even easier today with computers.
There you
But
go. Yeah.
they can't everything. They missed the phone book in the Sandia library
Right.
that had his name and his room number and his phone number. And
in the newspaper is a huge.
And the newspaper
picture of
clipping,
him in
yeah.
front of the paper.
Yeah.
I mean, I was never there. Well, here he is
Yeah.
with his bio and his Honda jet car. I've fought that. A couple of people come to mind. I've lost a couple of friends over this because this guy, one dude was just ripping Lazar. I mean, Bob designed this security camera system for a brothel, right?
Yeah.
And people just go on and on and on and on.
it was a legal business. It was a legal business in Nevada.
Yeah, I mean, you think
still
that
is.
the guy was, a serial killer. I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you ever I don't know. I get
Well, Barry says it here, guy. He says, how did Bob know to go on Wednesday night? If his wife wasn't cheating on them or cheating on him, I think is supposed to say, none of this would have happened.
Then Gene Huff went with him, and Lear went with him, and I mean, it's not like he didn't have witnesses too. I mean, they're all lying. They're all lying.
Yeah. For what purpose? I don't do this for fame and fortune. I've been married too many times. I have no fortune.
Me too.
And I don't have fame. I'm infamous, but I don't have any fame.
Yeah.
I do this because I really enjoy it, and I love sharing what I have.
Well, you've had some amazing friggin' experiences, man. I mean you have been able to meet John Lear and meet Bob Lazar and just frankly, pardon my language, bullshit with them as guy to guy. And I mean, that's when you find out who a person is.
Ben Rich, the former president of Skunk Works and Kelly Johnson's right-hand man. I don't know how I got on his list of favorite people, but Ben Rich and I spoke to each other. He either called me or I called him about once a quarter for 25 years. And he's the reason the Minnesota Air Guard got an A-12 Blackbird, because in August of '89, Ben calls me up and he said, Jim, I got it from the horse's mouth, and it should have been really the horse's ass, but I got it from the horse's mouth that the Blackbirds aren't going to make this. And if anyone could scrounge one, it's you. So I said, okay, I'm going to start the ball rolling right now. The next day I went over to the base. I called the adjutant general for the state of New York. Secretary answers the phone and he said, yes, ma'am, this is Sergeant Goodall with the 133rd. is General Weaver available? And she says, just a minute, Sergeant, I'll put him through. You know, I hear a ring, and I answer the phone. This is General Weaver. I said, sir, this is Jim Goodall from Sergeant Goodall with the 133rd. How can I help you, Sarge? I said, I got a question. How would the New York Air Guard like to move the world's fastest airplane in a couple of your C-5s? And it was dead silent for a few seconds. He said, you mean the Blackbird? I said, yes, sir. When you're ready, you call, we'll haul. So to put it in perspective, when Pratt & Whitney was trying to get a Blackbird for West Palm Beach, they were going to put it on a wind vane. So if hurricanes, it would always be blowing into the wind. They asked Air Force if they could lease a C-5 to move a Blackbird. And the Air Force came back and says, yeah, it's $960,000 a day plus gas. And I had two C-5s for 8 days each. And I scrounged it. And the other thing about...
What was your total cost, Jim?
$27,000 was all we spent to move the Blackbird. And that includes hotel room, we flew in the C-130 to Palmdale. I brought 12 guys plus myself and 18,000 pounds of equipment. And we took the wings off the airplane in 2.5 days. I had 3 chief master sergeants with 40 plus years each of aircraft maintenance. I had 3 senior masters. The rest of us were either techs or master sergeants. And I was there it was my project, and I was there to cover it. But the most exciting thing, besides getting the A-12 Blackbird, is we loaded into the C-5. And I don't know photos of that, Wayne?
Which one?
Loading the Blackbird into a C-5.
You did send me that. Keep talking. I'll put it up.
Yeah. So, they didn't have fuel there at Palmdale on the 27th of October, so we flew up to Travis. And when we loaded the C-5, we only had 1.5 inches of clearance on the floorboards, and we had cut the wings off at Wing Station 112, and we had to take the outer wheels and landing gear off so we would fit into the C-5. And we went up to Travis, spent the night. Next morning, we're heading to Minneapolis, and we're about 30 minutes out from Travis, and the chief master sergeant crew chief is going down to check the load. So I said, can I go with you? I said, normally I'd say no, but since this is your project, yes. So we both go down. I gotta let my dog in just a second.
Not a problem.
Was that Traverse City
What do you want?
that he was referring to?
Travis Air Force Base. It's in
I gotta let her out.
No, not Travis.
Okay, not a problem. Go ahead, Jim.
Man, I'll tell you what. This guy is like,
Dude.
I've talked to a lot. I got on a podcast. Long story. I did a podcast last night. Well, it happened suddenly. A guy said, "Will you be on my podcast?" I went, "Okay." Biggest mistake of my life.
Really?
Yeah, it's a long story. Just
that sucks.
Well, I looked at the other people he'd had, and they were total flakes. And this guy, my wife just said, "Don't say that." I'm sorry, man. The truth is the truth. This guy is the real flipping deal, man.
Yeah. So
yeah.
where
This
was
guy
I?
is the real deal.
Yeah.
So we left Travis, and about 30 minutes later, the chief goes down to check the load, and I go down with him. I climb up the landing gear, I walk along the chines, and I had used a wheel chuck to hold the canopy open because the counterbalance was out of nitrogen. That's for loading it.
Wow, that's great.
I only know what a wheel chuck is because of the song Aces High by Iron Maiden. But go on.
Okay. Now, so I climbed up and got in the air. And I had a 5-gallon bucket because the seat was all the way down. I had a cushion on top. I go in there and I close the canopy. I'm in there for about 45 minutes, just going zoom, zoom, So finally, I hear a rap on the bottom of the airplane. Okay, so I open the canopy. So we got to get out. So I got out, closed the canopy, put the chalk back in, and then went back upstairs. And as we're we were, an hour later, we're starting our descent into Minneapolis.
So you're in the air at this point.
Yeah, I'm in the air.
Okay. Okay.
So the boss, the chief comes back and said, the boss said you can be in the cockpit when we land. Well, I'm on the forward end. I'm going to be in the cockpit of the C5. I said, no, downstairs. So
That's awesome.
That's Jim Eastham. He said he hadn't seen that airplane in 25 years, and he's the number 3 guy to fly the A-12, super guy. But he, when that was, so after we landed, I called Ben Rich, and I said, Ben, I think I have a something that on the Blackbird that no one else can achieve. He said, what's that? I said, I'm the only person on the planet that has been in the cockpit of a Blackbird at 33,000 feet at Mach 0.72 inside another airplane, and I landed it with me inside the airplane. He just laughed. He said, I almost should send you a Mach 3 card, make a Mach 3 minus card. So that is...
it's a word.
Mach 3 minus.
Yeah.
Yes. Try to have that experience somehow.
No,
exactly.
And absolutely, and you couldn't do what I did today because of fraud, waste, and abuse, and whatever. You would find some bean counter who has been paying for prostitutes and young boys for the last 30 years, and he's going to object to using resources for training moving outsized cargo, and that's what the training scenario was. They would find someone who would find fault with that. But that's one of the most fun things I've done. And when we landed, you couldn't have knocked the grin off my face with a 2x4 with nails on it. I mean, it's just and the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup, and the World Series all at the same time.
Well, here I love what Dorothy has to say here. She says, amazing, a real live person with broad experience with flying craft and their development, a real aviation legend. That's Jim Goodall. And a really funny storyteller.
Dorothy,
absolutely.
Thank you very much. I mean, I just, in my books, I'm a storyteller, and people have called me that because I'm a historian, and I think it's why I dug in so deep into the Blackbirds, because I really wanted to know what they did, how they got there, who did it. I met Kelly Johnson, I met Ben Rich. 5 of the former presidents and the current one, vice president, general manager of the Skunk Works, have my Blackbird book and my Skunk Works book.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here David posed this question, and he was asking if does the panel answer questions? We tried to. Barry says for $1, but he put this up. He put this up here.
Ghost Dragon said we should have said that he should have said 5.
Right.
$5. We each get $1, man. Come on.
Look, the best way to get our attention to ask a question, honestly, because we don't do super chats and stuff, and we don't have the subs and not concerned about that, put everything in caps, and that'll help draw it out, and we can ask the question. But David asked, does anyone think contact is possible through connection from the mind through past experience and hurts? So I'm guessing vibration, energy waves, things like that, and the net picking up the messages. That's interesting.
I believe in telepathy. I have a dear friend of almost over 50 years. He lives in Fallbrook, California. We worked for the phone company in 1966, and we were roommates. Don would get ready to say something, and I would say it. I'd get ready something off the wall. Had nothing to do with what we're talking about. I'd be ready to say something, again, off the wall, and Don would say it. This went on for years. I went my separate way. He went his separate way. Along comes the internet. It's now 2015 and 2014. I said, well, I'm gonna put in Donald J. Avery. Boom! It came up to where he lived, and I said, I know he worked for Johnson Wax. That's Kenosha. Turns out on Monday of that week, his wife, Merritt, said, Don, have you ever heard from your old friend Jim Goodall? I said, do you have any idea where he's at? And he said,
worse, man.
Said, I don't have a clue. It was that same day as when I looked up his name. And then Thursday, this is a Monday. Thursday, Merritt goes down and checks the mail, and she came back and said, Don said, you know, we were talking about your friend Jim Goodall. He said, yeah, here's a postcard from him. I had lost track of him for 40 years.
Wow.
But something told me to look him up on that particular day, and Merritt had talked about me on that particular day to Don, and I had sent the postcard off on that same day.
Okay, Dorothy has a question. She says, I have a question of a personal family history nature to ask Jim Goodall. Will he ever accept me as a friend on Facebook so I can message him about it?
Absolutely. Do it. Put it in Messenger. Say, you know, would you, or just, you know, go into Facebook, hit a friend request.
Yeah.
And I know Dorothy Hawkins. You will get it. You'll get an acceptance from me.
And Dorothy was
Promise.
promoted to a moderator on our Facebook or on our YouTube channel, so she's official now.
I don't even have a title, man.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah, you do. You're the grumpy old curmudgeon,
I'm
and
not-
Burton is bringing the ladies to the podcast. Come on.
No,
Get off my lawn, guy. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Jim, man, you got so much experience, man, trying to cut through any of this. We've already been at 2 hours and almost 2 hours just now, 2 hours and 2 minutes.
That's crazy.
So we're gonna have to get you back because we got to talk about these.
Absolutely.
We got to talk about the triangles, UFOs, saucer, the whole kit and caboodle. Who was the guy flying the airplane along Mount Rainier? Damn, I always remember his name and I can't forget. Kenneth Arnold. You know, and looking at that, and there's so much I want to ask too, because I'm wondering if these things are some type of a human consciousness type of thing that we get these glimpses of. But it seems like when we find or see these things that we are projected further ahead in technology or something just by seeing them. So for instance, Kenneth Arnold, he didn't say flying saucers. He said flying wings. And this was in 46, 47, right? And now, you know, the media came up with flying saucer, but he said these things skipped through the air, almost like you skip a rock on the water, and they were boomerang shaped. After he said that, look at the work that went on flying wings that all of a sudden started happening. And so I think these things kick up the consciousness level.
The flying wings, you know, Horton was for World War, all the way into World War II. You know, the Horton, I don't know what the model number is. The Smithsonian has, with funding from Northrop, have totally restored the Horton flying wing that they have at the National Air and Space Museum.
I never understood how those things without a horizontal stabilizer could stay in the air. You know?
Well, on the B-2, I've written a book on the B-2, it's sort of, you know, right over here. I have even let me fly the simulator for 2.5 hours. That was incredible. The B-2, when it first takes off, the gear goes up, the doors stay down. That's the verticals at slow speed. If you look at the doors are thick, they're reinforced, and they can take the buffeting on takeoff. So I have shots of, you know, the gear all the way up, and the gear doors are all the way down. And I
look at that thing. Imagine seeing that and not knowing it's being built.
Well, like I said, I know nothing about aviation, man. You know, but like I thought any plane had to have, like, isn't it called a horizontal stabilizer to keep it so it doesn't fly?
Not if you're doing fly by wire and you have computers calculating how to open up. So look at this picture. Let me go to this. And Jim, back me up on this. I'm just a GA pilot, but if you look up here on the left wing at that aileron there, see how it's split? One part's going up, one part's going down. That's all controlled by computers to control how that thing rolls.
During peacetime, the split ailerons are always open at five degrees, because from 0 to 5 degrees they have no effect. So they have it open. So when they do have to turn, the reaction is immediate. Now, when I flew the sim, when you're gonna go off to bank off to the starboard side, you go there and you have to come back. You have to stop the turn, because the airplanes are going to keep on going unless you bring the stick back to the opposite direction to neutralize it. And going up to the tanker, I mean, you're literally you're going like this, and it's a real challenge. It only took me 3 tries to hook up with the tanker, and the instructor. And I'm not a pilot. I've flown the C-130 sim a lot at my unit, and I've flown the 777 simulator at Boeing. But the airplane is it's a real challenge to fly it initially. But the instructor pilot says, I flew heavies for 6 years, and it took me more times to hook up with the tanker, and you did it in 2 or 3 tries. I said, dumb luck, beginner's luck, because I have a sense of how things work.
Yeah.
And it just tickled me. And then they gave me a certificate stating that I had flown the sim.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, lady and gentlemen, I think we should probably wrap this up at this point. It's going over 2 hours, and
Charlie says goodnight.
if
Charlie says goodnight. Somebody
says goodnight.
Somebody wanted to see Charlie the other night.
Wayne, Michelle, Guy.
Hey Jim, I loved it, man. It was fascinating.
I had a wonderful night, and Dorothy, thank you for your nice compliments. And yes, I will accept your friend request on Facebook.
And we'll set up another date here soon, so we can get you to come back on and talk some more, so we can really start to dig into some more of this UFO stuff. Because Guy, Michelle, and I
got a lot of questions.
We have experience with black triangles, and neither one of us buys the TR3B thing. So this is something completely different that happened here in Michigan, and our experience in 2018, Guy's experience in 1994, around the same date as the Western Michigan UFO flap in March of 94 on the west side, though. So everybody focuses on that west side because there's radar data, but on the east side of the state, these huge black triangles were being seen and experiencing, and Guy can talk a little bit about that next time.
125 foot above my head. In fact, Michael Surratt I saw a documentary about 2 weeks ago, and he has he's got a thing that shows exactly what I saw, but it's like right here. And it's the bottom of it looked like the video game Tetris. It was like this weird design on the bottom.
Pattern.
And I could have hit this thing with a rock. It's about probably 300 foot by 300 foot. It was crazy. But that's another story.
I got two short things I want to say before we go.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Like I said, Ben Rich and I go back. We talked once a quarter for 25 years. And just before he died, I called Ben. He was at USC Medical Center. He was dying of esophageal cancer from probably breathing all the nasty chemicals associated with stealth. And we were talking about our late friend, John Andrews from Testers. And he said, Jim, we have things that's 50 years beyond when you can comprehend. And he wasn't referring to Area 51. And I said, if you've seen movies like Star Trek or Star Wars, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. I said, Ben, you want to expand upon that? He said, no. But in 93, when he was he retired in 91 from the Skunk Works. And in 93, he gave a talk at UCLA. It was the School of Aeronautics. It was graduate students. And he was a keynote speaker. And at the end of his talk, he said, we have the ability today, this is 1993, so that's 30 years ago. Yep. We have the ability to take E.T. home. Think about that statement.
I remember him saying that.
And if and he said, if you see movies like Star Wars or Star Trek, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. And one other item, I was a docent up at Kitt Peak National Observatories. They have 22 optical telescopes, everywhere from a 12-inch to a 4-meter telescope. And just before I quit being a docent, we had a gathering of all the astronomers, technicians, and docents. Had to go to, and went to the headquarters at the University of Arizona, and the keynote speaker was the head guy from the National Science Foundation for Astronomy. He had just returned from a worldwide conference on exoplanets. And he said, based on proven mathematics, and these were people from all over the world, and it was like a week-long session, said, using proven mathematical formulas, we calculate for every star in the universe, there's a whole bunch of them, there's 1.5 planets. And out of that incredible number of planets, we calculate that we estimate between somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 billion, that's with a B, 2 billion Earth-like planets orbiting a similar size brown dwarf star as our sun in the inhabitable zone with liquid water. If we're the only ones, what a waste of space, to quote Jodie Foster's character in Contact.
Exactly.
Contact. Yep.
So,
All right, Burton, Diane says that you look like you have something that you need to get off your chest and talk before we get out of here.
It was just kind of crazy that he said that, because it was something that has I don't know where this came from. I don't know. I don't have any foundation or basis from this, but he just backed it up. Just that, like, the whole basis of like what he just said. Like, if there's all of that out there, then you know, and it's all just like us.
What are the chances?
On some level, look, what are the chances? And it was just preaching to the choir, I guess, on some level.
yeah.
So
Absolutely. All right, so everybody, we're getting ready to take off. Jim, any final words? Where can people find you, get in touch with you, anything like that?
Well, I don't have a website because I waste enough time it is on this on my Mac. I'm on Facebook. It's Jim Goodall. You recognize it's all airplanes or UFOs or whatever.
They can find your books on Amazon?
Go on to Amazon.com, put in books by James C. Goodall, and the hardbound books will show up immediately. Now I have, and the rest of them if some of them I have my name is Jim Goodall, but the hardbound ones mostly are James C. Goodall. So you can both names to search, but the ones, and if you're a member of if you have Prime membership on Amazon, that Skunk Works book costs 5.5 pounds. It weighs 5.5 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, they have my Nautilus in there. It's not ready yet, but
Pre-order. It says pre-order.
Yep. And it'll be released August 15th. I'm just finding that out now today. But these are my treasures.
Are any of them on audiobook? Are any of your books on audio?
I've never done it, but so I don't know if anybody, if the publishers have. I think Sheffer has one of my books on audio, but it's not really a storyteller. It's a visual. My books are pictorial histories,
Right.
and like I say, just photo captions on my newest book on Nautilus to Columbia class. It's 50,000 words just in captions.
Yeah, how would you present something like that in audio form?
Yeah. So every photo and every page has a story, and it's all chronological, and that's just how I do it. So you were put on the spot, huh, Burton?
I guess.
Uh-oh.
Well, we were all put on the spot by doing a live show tonight. So
Thank you. Was that Diana?
Yeah, Diane.
Diane. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Diane.
And thanks for inviting me, and I'm more than happy to come back again. Like I said,
Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you so much, Jim.
I want this guy to come back every night because he knows wherever he speaks. He's
No.
not speculating about crap to the extent that not to the extent that the rest of us are, you know.
I mean, I don't even know how I got to this point in my life, other than the fact I don't take no for an answer. I've always been a pain in the ass.
Me too.
No,
Yeah.
Jim definitely has to come back because I don't think any of us really got to really dig in.
And I think you have an ex-wife named Shelley. I do too.
Yes, I do too, Shelley.
I do too.
But I'm real close to Shelley. I talk to her at least
I'm not, but
twice a month.
I got one.
I just talked to her last night. The Antichrist. She's 4'10", Greek, and she was punishment for something evil I did in a past life.
I got a 4'1" that's an Antichrist who's Mexican and Apache Indian.
Oh, jeez. Okay. And then I had the fraud who took me for everything I had. She was beautiful.
I love this. This guy,
but she was evil.
He's my brother. I think.
I'm married to one of the sweetest ladies in the world. I refer to her as my Nazi bitch. She's 100% German. She was a flight attendant for Alaska.
I'm feeling a little vulnerable here, being the only female on this panel.
I met her. I met my wife.
Hungarian.
I met my wife on Match.com.
I'm Hungarian too.
Oh.
Yeah. So and I'm very happy with her. So. But
man.
I've had a wonderful
That's
evening.
good. That's a good story.
It's gone fast. It's been 2 hours and 16, almost 17 minutes.
Yes,
I'm more than happy to come back again. You just let me know when. Now on Wednesday and Thursdays, Wednesday I'm with Ron Mason. Thursdays I'm with Jared.
Jim,
Murphy.
it was an absolute honor and pleasure to be able to talk to you tonight.
Yeah, it was, man.
Seriously.
Thanks.
I enjoyed the whole time, so the feeling's mutual.
Yeah, it was a great time. So, Jim, I'm going to go ahead and take you out of the shot. And thank you very much. And we will be in touch soon. Obviously, me and you have a mutual friend, and Jared as well.
Yeah.
And love talking to you again in the future. So thank you very much.
Sounds good to me. You take care.
All
Have
right.
a good weekend.
You too.
You too, Jim.
What a great guy, man.
All right. Yeah.
Now this guy has had the most interesting life. I thought I'd had kind of an interesting life, but playing piano in a bunch of nightclubs and casinos. This guy hanging out with Ben Rich and John Lear and met Lazar before he even believed in UFOs. And I mean,
Absolutely.
my God, this is just crazy.
Guy, you're going to have to write down all of your questions so when we're able to get him back on, so you don't forget
Oh,
them.
man, I'm so bummed out and he had so many great stories. And I was still interrupting. We all know how I am.
Yeah.
But
go ahead,
he
Bert.
had all these damn questions I wanted to ask him. And I'm like this little kid going, what time's Jim get back?
My only thing, honestly, like going into
peanut butter cup.
going into research, looking into him earlier today and everything, like re-listening. Of course, I've listened to every episode of Michigan UFO Paranormal Encounters podcast, but listening to that one earlier today and listening to another podcast that he was on, I believe it was called Into the Deep. I think it was called Into the Deep. So shout out to them.
That's the one I got right.
Pretty good podcast. He on tonight and on those two episodes, he the only like that.
There he goes.
I loved talking to him and everything was fantastic. But
he's a cool guy, man. I mean, he's cool.
But when I listened to the like when I listened to those two and then did this one live back to back, it was a lot of the same things I had already heard. There was a lot of like of the same exact. Like a lot of what he said tonight was what I've already heard. So he's a great talker. He's a great talker. Like he should have his own podcast because he's great.
Man, dude,
he's a great fucking talker.
He'd be like Joe Rogan for the space people.
What I didn't mention is that he does a show every Thursday with Jared Murphy called Not Aliens on YouTube.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they get on there and talk, and Jim is actually getting involved with a lot of the archaeology and ancient text stuff, which we didn't even touch yet.
Not even.
One of the expeditions that Jared is doing down in Belize. So, and like I said, that was a expedition I was going to try to go on, but it's happening at the same time that Michelle and I already planned our trip to go on spring break. So yeah.
There's so many places that we could go with.
Oh my God.
He's got such a broad.
Oh my Odin.
He's got this tremendously broad, this breadth of experience in kind of the paranormal, aviation.
Yeah, I didn't even get to ask him about ghosts or anything. Like,
No, that'll be next time.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to see if we can get him back on for next Saturday, since next Saturday is supposed to be our normal live show
stream. Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking he's so damn good, we might actually make some money at this crap.
I mean, not
I doubt that.
It's just like
that's not gonna happen.
Like it kind of already happened on your guys' like normal episode. I think it was 33 or something like that.
Yeah.
That he was on with Jared. I think he was on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Michelle was out of town.
Yeah. And so like, and then this one kind of like laid down the groundwork for like everything I've heard him say before. And so now it's like the next time he comes on, we'll really be able to get into it, because now he doesn't have to like recite.
I want to grill him, bring the light down over his head and all right now.
Yeah, a little, not necessarily grill him, not necessarily like be mean or anything, but like like get into it a little bit, like get into more than what I've heard him say on the other, because like we all go on these different shows and not all the audiences have the same experience. So sometimes you have to give that your experience to the audience at first. But then the next time you come on, you get to really kind of get into the nitty gritty. So that's like I definitely have some things written down that I look forward to asking him in the future.
Yeah, let's table that stuff for next time, and hopefully it'll be next Saturday. I'll get in touch with him and see if he's busy, and
be a lot of fun.
We'll go from there. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. So if people are interested in what Burton's doing online and with his podcast, he's got Lost in the Dark podcast. You can find that in the links in right below here in the show description. He's also got his Follow the Reaper, which is his other podcast where he's doing the first or second hand ghost stories and UFO stories and things like that, but he would like them recorded by you and send in with your own voice, your own inflection, which is awesome. It's a great idea. And you tell him the story and he'll put it out there on his podcast. Am I correct, Burton?
100%. And the
awesome.
the episode, I'm only 10 episodes deep, and episode 11 will be coming out next Thursday.
Awesome. And then Guy is on Facebook or on YouTube as well.
If you want to know what I'm doing, you can come over to my house and give you my address. You can throw the ball for this puppy because I'm sick of it. You'll chase that son of a bitch for
I'll come hang out with your pup.
I think he thinks the old man he wants to do this. So I'll humor him, and he's got this ball he chases, and we never taught him to fetch. He brings it back. I throw it. This goes on for like 45 minutes. I'm exhausted.
See, this is why we have the old curmudgeon come on. See, he's yelling at the dog to stop messing with him when it's, he doesn't know whose dog it is. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's my dog. Oh, all right. I'm still yelling at you. Man,
we got a crazy cat. We got a couple of crazy dogs. Like, no,
we got three. We got three crazy cats.
So. Well, and Ash tonight wasn't up for yelling and doing his howl, because usually I'll throw the alien duck at him.
Really?
To get him to stop.
Yeah. Oh my God. Linda went online. She found for Chihuahuas a ton of these UFO outfits for Halloween. They're hysterical fun. And she's like, she wants to buy Charlie this UFO outfit. I'm like, people already think I'm nuts enough. I got a Chihuahua wearing a spaceman costume.
No, she's just into it. She's like, support your
Oh,
thing. Let's do it.
they're hysterical. She found them on some
No,
friggin' website.
Win and Michelle, you guys gotta get a Michigan UFO dog costume
There you
and have Charlie wear it.
Oh man, they're funny. They're funny. They
my
have,
God.
like, antennas and shit. It's crazy, man.
Oh yeah.
I'm already eyeing my costume for this October to wear to work. The one where I'm like the little person in front of the alien and the alien's inflated behind me, like
I
holding me.
still don't know how you guys teach, and like you're in middle school, he's in high school, because I know I love Michelle's description, the raised eyebrow. You know, when you tell somebody, I remember you've used that a lot. And I get that a lot. When I think I can tell somebody, you know, I've seen a UFO close up, and I think my coworkers got abducted. It's like, really, you know, I can't raise my eyebrow, but it's kind of like this. But I can imagine being in school and having your kind of jobs and doing that.
Right.
Oh, I've got a coworker of mine, my friend Kelly. I told her that we were gonna be coming up your way in March to do some sky watching. And so she got so excited. We may end up with a fifth person.
Oh man! I hope
Oh my God! So they're
we should do that, because
we'll
you guys
set that up.
know now how many people. I've driven out there a couple times at night
I've got
because
people out there.
it drives me batty. I'm like, I know it's out there a lot. I mean,
And anybody, where is it? Where is it again? Let's give a specific location.
yeah. I don't know the longitude and latitude.
Well,
but
no, but
yeah,
like
right.
generally.
US 23, which you can look up on Google Maps or whatever, and it's right between Baldwin and Thompson roads. On the west side of the road, there's a big grove of trees.
In like Flint, Michigan, right?
Yeah, south of, Flint, Michigan.
Just
About
yeah.
3-4 miles south of the city, about 2.5 miles south of Flint's airport, where the guy told me, yeah, we were in the tower, but we didn't see anything. I'm like, dude, the lights were blinding me from the overpass that's right next to you.
So look that up. If any listeners right now that are listening have a spot that we could like hang out at in March during to look up at the sky, let us know. It'd
be fun. Be interesting.
Yep. All right, everybody. Once again, thank you for joining us on this podcast. It's been an awesome show. We had a nice audience tonight. Hopefully more will listen here in the future once I get this out on Spotify.
And thanks to, was it Dragon that kept donating money? And
yeah, we had Ghost Dragon. Had
Barry was our negotiator.
Yep. We had Anthony Stevens donate through PayPal. Burton donated through PayPal. Thanks.
Really nice.
Dorothy is the mom of chat.
And Dorothy, my adopted mom, was the first donator that we had. So
thank you, Dorothy, because the streaming does cost some money. Michelle and Wayne in particular put an awful lot of time into this. I just wake up from a nap and babble. But I don't even dress for this thing. I don't have a backdrop. But they work.
Actually, your backdrop is pretty good because you look like you live in a knotty pine house. That looks.
I built all that. This used to be, the ceiling was falling in, the floor was collapsing, and that was all dark paneling. And I gutted it. I built all of that.
Looks gorgeous.
I was gonna say I love the ceiling in that room.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
that was Linda's idea. She said when I was remodeling, she said, "I want wood in the ceiling." And I went, "Who puts wood in the ceiling?" Shows what I know.
That's because she watches HGTV.
Yeah. He belongs to the dog.
He belongs to the dog.
I do.
All right. And just so everybody knows, I know, Richie is a good friend of ours and from Goof On, and he's pretty much solidly made his show be from 7 to 9. So we're going to discuss whether we should do our show maybe a couple hours before, I'm thinking about this, or maybe after from 9 to 11. So we can get everybody in and have a good time all evening on Saturday. We'll the four of us will get together here and we'll figure this out. And
down with any of it.
Yeah. It's just,
even I like Richie's show. You know, I'm like, oh, I gotta do this.
Now
You know?
you can tell them about
Yeah, he's very passionate and he hates fakers, and I agree, but that we can go down that road. We'll get him back on here as well, and we can have that discussion because man, he's not what everybody thinks he is. He's a damn comedian, and he's from the old school comedian days, right? Richard Pryor, Andrew Dice Clay, your mother is
Well,
this and that kind of a thing.
Well,
So-
that's early
yeah,
Saturday Night Live. Yeah,
Yes.
Sometimes he gets a
so-
little bit carried away, but he is, like I said, on his show in the chat, he's very passionate, and he doesn't suffer fools lightly. If he knows you're bullshitting, you're in trouble. I mean, it's he comes at you with guns blazing, and I don't really
Well,
blame him.
you better be ready for it. If you get caught faking something or whatever, he's gonna let you know it. So Dorothy says, have a
Thank you,
wonderful
Dorothy.
night, everyone. I
Thank you,
hope you
Dorothy.
enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Dorothy.
Thank you, Dorothy. Lots of love.
Hearts.
Our adopted mom of the podcast.
Horns
And
up.
all right, yep. And then we gotta do our little metal horns. So all right, Burton, I'm gonna send you to the back. Guy, I'm gonna send you to the back.
What?
Get off my lawn, guy. All right, Burton, we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, definitely. Everybody, be sure to follow the Reaper and check out Lost in the Dark podcast.
Absolutely. Links are in the show description right now, as a matter of fact. All right, Michelle. Whew, what a show.
It was nice to meet Jim on this one since
you
I
weren't
couldn't make
here.
the other one.
So everybody that watched and donated, thank you very much.
Yes, thank
Find
you.
links to help support the podcast, and we'll use that to help with our trips that are to conferences and things like that. Get some new stuff. Thank you, Ghost Dragon. Awesome show. Thank you very much. All right, Diane, have a good night. Ghost Dragon, have a good night. Dorothy, obviously, have a good night. And with that being said, everybody, we're checking out, and we will see you next time. And remember, keep your eyes to the
Sky.
Is it the sky?
It is the sky.
Wow. Okay. I guess it's the